Welcome back to another episode of The Hip. My name is James Layton, CEO and founder of Anderson James. This is the podcast where every single week I bring you a leader from our sector to discuss some of the biggest challenges in UK housing today. Today on The Hip, I was delighted to be joined by Debi Marriott-Lavery, Chief Executive Officer at Magenta Living. We talk about her reflections on 12 months in post as Chief Executive at Magenta, and we talk about Debi's new podcast series following the success of her previous one, Styling It Out. We also go into some detail about Magenta reshaping its vision to focus on its customers, its communities and its culture, and the launch of its new corporate strategy in 24, which will cover the period of 24 to 30. We also talk about Debi's leadership insights and some of the lessons she's learned to pass on to aspiring leaders of the future. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, I'd ask that you like and subscribe. Debi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm
nervous. I'm a fellow podcaster, so it might be the first podcaster. In fact, no, I had Nick Atkin on once, and he's a fellow podcaster as well. So,
well, I'm not as scary as Nick in the nicest possible way. I love him to pieces. So yeah, I'm not as scary as Nick.
Love that. Well, as I always like to start, do you mind just by giving us an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Debi Marriott-Lavery, and I'm currently the Chief Exec of Magenta Living. So yeah, nice to meet you.
I know, love this. Looking forward to unpacking it. And as I always like to start, talk us through the journey into housing then, because I know you started your career in healthcare. Give us a bit of an understanding of how you got into the sector.
Yeah, so I did. So I'm a nurse by profession, although I say to people now it's been a long, long time. So please don't ever be ill around me, because it's like a massive pressure that I'd have to do something, and which I have had to do in the past. You know, there was a guy had a diabetic coma in front of me once in Germany, and I had to kind of like sort that out. So yeah, so now I get really nervous when I tell people. But anyway, so yes, so I started off in nursing, and I kind of progressed really quickly through the NHS and ended up working in sort of health and social care, really, and kind of went into management positions. Did a bit of healthcare recruitment, actually. So you might want to talk to me about that at some stage. Yeah, I did, which I absolutely loved. Anyway, sort of my journey into housing really was kind of from health, social care. So I was MD of Care UK, and Care UK, we used to provide care to people in their own homes, and we did 35,000 hours of care a day. Now, apparently that's like, so 35,000, if you think about that, that's a football stadium. So we would do that amount of care a day. And one of the things that really, really struck me throughout my time in social care was just how important housing was. And just that whole kind of connection between health, housing, social care, and probably education as well. But certainly, you know, a lot of health and social care outcomes are determined by people's environments. So I kind of got really interested in housing, and particularly when you're looking at people with disabilities and people with comorbidities, and, you know, some of the real kind of challenging areas that we have for individuals in the country. And I was kind of like, what we really need here is decent housing. So, the opportunity came with Places for People when they contacted me and said, we need somebody to come and really look at our supported housing business, because we don't think we really have one, and we think we should. And I was like, yeah, that's got my name all over it. So off I went into housing.
Amazing. How did that prepare you? Was it a good sector to come from? Like you said, the healthcare thing, did it give you a different perspective when you went into that role, would you say?
I just so think that my whole kind of experience with healthcare has just been so defining for me as an individual, really, because I talk about this quite a lot. And I say that, you know, when you're 21 years old and you're running A&E on a Friday night in Birmingham, there's very little that kind of like freaks you out after that, let me tell you. So it does become that whole point around, you know, one of those kind of defining moments that helps you proportionalize things and helps you look at things and helps you look at patterns, and, you know, also makes you realize the importance of teamwork. So for me, it's always been about, you know, you have to have a really good team around you who have all got the right skills to be able to cope with certain situations, and you need to flip and keep calm in a crisis.
Yeah. I was going to say you'd be good in a crisis, but I think it's really important. There's a lot of synergies in there, healthcare and housing. Like, it's very, very similar in the sense of like very customer centric, very needs based, and actually kind of like the same with the healthcare system. The way we do it in the UK is the same with the housing. We just need to be able to provide a good, safe home for everyone, don't we, really?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are really, really inextricably linked for
Yeah,
sure. And also they're both very political, aren't they? And
very.
both of them. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of similarities.
No, there is. And 12 months in the post as CEO as a Magenta, kind of, how do you summarize that 12 months? Probably a whirlwind, but like, how do you reflect on that 12-month period? What's been some of the challenges? What's been some of the successes?
Wow. Yeah, it's whenever anyone asks you that question, you have that moment, don't you, where you just think, oh my God, I can't think. I've gone blank. What happened? Nothing's happened. And yeah, everything's happened. I wanted to work for an organization that was regionally based and that was an anchor organization. And that's exactly what Magenta is. So I'd previously worked for a much larger organization and had an amazing time. But there were so many things that I saw there that I thought, oh, I really think that if we were somewhere where we had a heartland, we were absolutely part of communities, we could do X, Y, and Z, and we really could make a difference. And I think the beauty of Magenta is that we are able to do that, and I'm starting to see that now really play out. So it is just amazing. It's such a vibrant organization with lots of challenges, lots of complexity, but lots of opportunity. So there's so much that I think that the team and I have achieved already, but you look down the pipe and see how much we still have to do.
Yeah, and we'll probably come back to that. So just give us a bit of a helicopter overview of the business, because it's like you say, it's very regionally placed. In fact, actually, is it something around 10% housing within the Wirral is Magenta or social housing? Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And we own 50% of all the social
Wow.
housing stock as well that's in the world. So yeah, so it's an organization based in Wirral. You have to say Wirral, not even the Wirral.
Oh, can you
Wirral.
not say the Wirral?
No,
I always say
no.
that.
You
I don't
see,
know
I've
why.
learned so much, and you certainly can't say Liverpool because you'll get struck.
Yeah, I knew that bit.
Oh yeah, exactly. So no, I mean it's fascinating because it's a peninsula, so it's just geographically where it sits. So we own and manage and support customers in 13,000 of our homes across the region. We have 600 colleagues who work within the team to drive the outcomes of the customers. We're very, very much in the heart of the community that we work in. It's a very interesting place. There are real areas of deprivation, sadly, within Wirral, but there are also some very, very high levels of affluence as well at the top end. So you get that real kind of juxtaposition. It is quite a conundrum. So, but yeah, we work very closely with health providers, with the council, with education. We really are part of a whole kind of community multidisciplinary setup.
Love that. And when you took the role 12 months ago, why did you pick that in particular? You said about the community based and all the other bits and pieces, but what did you inherit, and what have been some of the things that you've unpicked, and some of the challenges that you've faced in that 12-month period?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I inherited an organization with a lot of legacy and history. So it was a stock transfer from the council previously. When I arrived, Magenta in its form, its incarnation of Magenta, was 18 years old. So it's his 18th birthday as I arrived. And I think that it was one of those organisations that had historically provided housing and had been a key partner within its environment. But actually, it sort of needed to I don't know, I suppose punch out the bag a bit more, really, and because it has so much opportunity. There are some of the biggest regeneration plans outside of Europe are going into Wirral now in terms of investment. If you look at kind of the Birkenhead 2040 program, the Seacombe corridor, what they're actually going to be doing there to kind of regenerate all around the dock, and so it's such a great kind of, it's just got such a great vibe and a great opportunity. So so I inherited an organisation that had all that opportunity but didn't realise it.
Okay.
And I think had kind of previously felt that it was in a position where it was there to serve its current customers and tenants, but didn't see that there was potentially wider opportunity to grow and to thrive and to be at the heart of something bigger. And I think that's what I really love about it.
Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to unpick all that because I've got quite a lot prepared for the journey and what you're planning. But the first thing I wanted to pick on is the podcasting thing. So you had your own series. Was it? So talk to me about the previous one, Styling It Out, wasn't it? Was your previous podcast. So talk us a little bit about that and why you decided to go into podcasting.
Well, yeah, why have you gone into podcasting?
I don't know. You know what? I knew you was going to ask that, but I think for me, I just want to shine some positive light on the housing sector and to try and bring the voices out in the sector that, you know, we can sort of learn from each other a little bit better with a platform like this, where we still get people listening to the first episode from 2 years ago. So it's interesting how it's evergreen content. But yeah, like, I think it's important that we get people's opinions and voices heard in the sector. Would be my reason.
Exactly the same. To me, it's all about empowerment. And, you know, if I can do anything that helps to empower others by kind of sharing experiences or talking to other people within the podcast series that can just give light and shine light onto areas that people have not thought about, or you know, just gives people confidence to do things that they would not have thought of doing. And that's really what Styling It Out was for me, because I believe this is a new thing, but I believe I have social anxiety. I know, which is probably, a lot of people go, really, just like you just did. But yeah, I'm really quite nervous about putting myself out there, and have been I don't have a Facebook account, for example. It's not the kind of thing that I do. I've never been a great networker. It's never been something that I've felt really comfortable with. Everyone tells me that I'm a really great inspirational speaker, but I literally, my heart rate's about 120 before I go and speak to anybody. And I started to work with sort of a media company who were just really amazing, and sort of said to me, we were looking at branding and personal brand and brand of organizations, and they were saying to me, you should look at sort of, you know, a podcast, and it's the way that you become more visible. It'll get your messages out there. You'll be able to connect with people. They'll see how authentic you are, and it will really resonate. And, you know, and to me, the nursing bit, it's always been about helping others if I can. So it was another vehicle to do that, a more modern vehicle to do that. But so it took me a little bit of time to be convinced. But then, you know, I really enjoyed it. And the whole Styling It Out bit was that whole kind of premise for me, that's how I just kind of cope with stuff, or certainly did, was, you know, it was over time, it was of a period of time, and it was particularly around sort of COVID as well, you know, and how did I cope? And I cope by styling it out most of the time. And that is the point about the social anxiety. Well, yeah, exactly. And it is the point about the social anxiety, is that, the way I get through is to style stuff out sometimes. And if that helps anybody, then it's been worth doing, really, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I think how important that had been for you as a leader as well, in terms of having that authenticity to say that you're not socially comfortable all the time, and that you can push yourself out of your comfort zone. Because I was the same. I started this. I've never been more nervous in my life when I started this podcast. And it does bring in a self-confidence that you didn't think you had. It unlocks it a little bit. But when I first started, it was awful. And then it gets a bit easier time and time again. But how important is it for you to be able to step outside your comfort zone sometimes as a leader and as a chief exec, and show people that there is vulnerability there and there is authenticity?
Oh, 100% important. And I think that just deciding to kind of take that step to be a CEO for me was putting myself out of my comfort zone, because I'd always felt that I knew for some years now, because of, you know, promotions and opportunity and feedback, and I knew that I was a good leader, but I'd always kind of put myself in the position that I was a good number two. That's what I thought that I was, a COO, you know, somebody that would just be operationally absolutely sound. Yes, could be totally strategic, but enjoyed kind of, you know, working with teams and, just being in the heart of everything with the customer. And I always thought, I don't think I want to take that leap to CEO-dom, as it were. And so part of this whole process has really taught me that, yes, actually you should, and put yourself out there and put yourself out of your comfort zone. And, and the more that you do it, the more confidence you gain, the more you empower yourself and therefore others. So it's been, but like you, nervous as hell.
The worst.
Still get like that. This morning I was nervous. I was like, oh my God.
And talk us about are we calling it a prequel, or what are we saying it's going to be, your next series of podcasts, Beyond the Dots? Talk us a little bit about that and the reason for the change.
Yeah, so the starting it out point was, as we just said, was of a time. And your question just a minute ago about, did it help colleagues and did it help me and does it resonate and does it make me authentic and all of those things? And that was the biggest feedback that I got, actually. And that was one of the things that was really positive, was that people would say to me when they listen to it, oh my God, that really resonates with me. If someone like you can talk like that, then that absolutely makes me feel, so kind of ready to go and to take that next challenge. But then when I got this role, when I became CEO of Magenta, it kind of felt that I needed to do something a little bit different than just styling it out, because it was like styling it out got me to where I am, and
of course.
but I can't kind of be now like, I'm CEO and I just still keep styling it out. So although I do, so it was more about becoming that CEO. And because it was such a step for me, and one that I never thought that as I said earlier, that I would do. And because I did, then, we've kind of taken the next step, the next iteration, the next chapter is to say to people, look, this is what you can do. And I appreciate this is a podcast, but for people who know me and you can see me, I'm not your normal CEO in any way, shape or form, and I don't look like it. I don't behave like it. It's important to me to still be true to me and to be authentic. And that's why I think I prevented myself all that time from taking that leap. So the next stage is that if I can kind of help others to kind of become more confident, question their career goals, aspirations, think about who they want to be, and sort of talk about what helps me and others to kind of really push me forward in my next chapter, then that's what it's about, really.
Amazing. And you've said something there that comes up a lot in conversations that I have around number twos not having the self-belief to go and push themselves to the top job. We're going to need more chief executives in our sector, I can tell you, because of people retiring, coming to the end of their tenures, etc. What advice would you give someone to kind of push through that boundary of, I'm just a number two? I hear it all the time. Do you know what? Especially in females, I hear it more so, that I'm just a number two and I quite like playing that role. I'd love to test myself at chief exec level, but I'm not going to bother. What kind of advice could you give to those people?
I would absolutely say to them that they need to dig deep and really kind of, break out of that view, because it's been so enlightening and so empowering for me the last 12 months, really. It's been fantastic. I mean, previously to this role, I worked in a much larger organization. So you could argue that maybe my role of responsibility or remit was wider and bigger, but actually it's not at all. The size of the organization has nothing to do with it. The role of the CEO in terms of what you are required to do, expected to do, and are able to do, are capable to do. And it's humbling and it's just such a privilege. Honestly, I can't begin to tell you.
You love it, though. I can tell that you love it. You absolutely love it.
It's and somebody said to me before, do you regret not? And this was part of my latest podcast. Do you regret not doing it sooner? I don't think I do, because I think I needed to get to this stage. I needed to do things like my podcast series. I needed somebody to pull me out of myself because of this kind of, this sort of social anxiety and awkwardness that I have. And so, I think it was the right time for me. But going back to your point, oh my God, if there are people there that genuinely think that they are a good number two, then, as you've just said, there are organisations who need them, who absolutely need them.
I agree. What have you found some of the more difficult things in the last 12 months in terms of the difference in role? Like support network, did you need a good board around you? Like what were some of the things that you had to lean into a little bit more? Because it's a different job, right? You're the number one in the
Totally.
structure and you kind of not got that support layer above you necessarily other than your board of directors. But what are some of the things that you've really had to upskill in the last 12 months to be able to do that chief exec role?
I think you're right about the board relationship. I think that's absolutely key.
Yeah,
And that's probably it for me. I mean, in my previous role, I was a main board director, but of course I was one of many and I wasn't the CEO. And I had a very strong CEO in my previous life who supported me well and sort of helped to kind of encourage me, and also I shadowed him a few times. But until you do it yourself and you understand that that relationship is yours and how vital that is as well, so that's definitely one of the things that I've really learned is managing, working with, engaging with the board. And it's again, it's fascinating and it's brilliant to learn it. I love it, and even if you think, we put it in CVs, don't we? I was a main board director. Totally different, totally.
yeah,
So that, I think the other thing as well is the point that I suppose, and this is what always made me nervous about being number one as opposed to number two, is you can't know everything. And that's really difficult to get to grips with, because I think, as a really strong operator, and again, going back to nursing, when you feel that you need to have, literally, no pun intended, your finger on the pulse, I was going to say that, didn't you?
yeah, absolutely knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I know. You can see you smiling before I even said it, which was like, God. Anyway, but when you're a CEO, you have to make sure, and I know it's obvious, but you have to make sure you've got the right team around you. I've really found the importance of an inner circle that isn't just my team, but are other people around me who, confidants, support network, all of those, because it is just you. It is definitely just you. There are times that, you look around you and it's like there's a decision to be made. And although you will engage with your teams and you absolutely, I'm one that always collaborative, always want to get people's views. That's how I work. But then there are times that everyone's looking at you.
Yeah, and make a decision. Debbie, what are you doing? Make a decision. Now's the time.
And you look to the left, you look to the right, and you go, that's me. You're ready. So I've got to make that decision. All right then. Okay. So, but you can't know everything. So it's, what do you need to know? Are you asking the right questions? Do you have the right information? Do you have the right data? Really, really play into your strengths, but also acknowledging your challenges and making sure that you've got the people there to support you through that.
Yeah. And I had quite a lot prepared for this, but for me, when I summarize all the different chief executives or leaders I've spoken to, it's very clear to have a good vision and a good value set for an organization. And I think that's a big part of a chief executive role, isn't it? Is to create the right vision and the right set of values. But I know that you've reshaped that at Magenta recently to focus on customers, communities, culture. But how important is it for you to maintain that community focus? And sort of what are some of the things that you've been doing and initiatives to make sure you're keeping the residents informed on that journey?
Yeah, it's absolutely key to us. Customers are at the heart of everything that we do, and everyone says that, but they really are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have a little kind of strap line that is happy colleagues, happy customers, and that's what I push all the time. So we've got a number of ways that we connect with customers, and one of the beauties again is going back to previous life was when you've got an organisation that's national and you're supporting 70,000 homes and people who live in those homes. When you're in a world where you've got 13,000 and the majority of them are 15 to 20 minutes away, you can really connect and you can really understand. And you can understand what your communities are being challenged by. So at the moment, we've got a road show. That's a huge kind of well, it's a big van, if you like, but it's done up like Santa's grotto, and it's amazing. So we go out into our kind of heartlands, into our key estates and communities a couple of times a week. Santa's there, the elves are there, the reindeers, but it's kind of, that's part of it, and it's lovely. And we're, giving Christmas cheer and all the rest of it, but we're also giving advice at the same time. We're also talking to customers, and we're knocking on doors. And having conversations with customers, asking them, how it feels at the moment to be in their property. Is there things that they have issues with? Can we help them? What else are they experiencing? So we go out in that way as well. And, people see us. Every other car that goes through the Wirral is a Magenta van. So because we're just so visible out there. And that's not to say that I'm sitting on the laurels and I think I've got it nailed, because I don't, but it just gives you some examples. And we also have a thing called Magenta Connect as well, which is an online kind of portal where anytime we want to do any sorts of consultations or any sort of discussions, then we have we kind of reach out to a wider group of customers to get their views and their feedback, because the customer voice is just so important.
Yeah, it is. And I was going to ask you this actually. How have you seen it? It might be across two roles, this, but the in-person versus the online stuff. So everyone's talking digital transformation. I still think when I speak to tenants and residents, like there's still a genuine need for people to be seeing people and be visible to the tenants and the communities as well. But how have you seen that transition since COVID and since the digital age we now live in? How have you seen the need for digital services versus in-person services?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Digital is key, of course it is. And it gives an opportunity for people to connect with us quickly, and that you've not got to go through varying different people if you just want to book a repair. But ultimately, what you've seen post-COVID is that people want to see people.
Agreed, yeah.
And so, it's almost that sort of, it's almost a kind of a 180, isn't it? It's, a 360 even. So yes, we need to give a digital offer to customers, because we need to be much more efficient and effective for those who want that, particularly for working families who are incredibly busy and they just want to quickly connect with us and just get it all done, like we all do. We all just want to, press the button on Amazon and everything's delivered tomorrow. Of course we do. But I think right now there's also a world, and we in Wirral have an aging population, a significant aging population, and there's a number of our customers who have severe vulnerabilities, and they want to see us, and they want to see people, and they want to be able to talk to people and connect and feel that they've got that warmth and understanding and empathy, from an individual. So
no, I agree. And I noticed, I think when we spoke offline, you said you're about to launch your new corporate strategy. Is that for 2024 to 2030? Is that right?
Yeah. So the roadmap to 2030. So I was quite lucky when I arrived at Magenta last year. Their 5-year corporate strategy had come to an end, but because I joined, the board were quite keen to give me time to really understand and look at what we needed to do. So the last year we've called Magenta Reimagined, and it's given us that year to look at a kind of a transitional plan to do all the deep dive of where are the challenges, where are the opportunities, where do we need to invest. So we've been doing that, and just recently, on the back of, as you've said, listening to colleagues, listening to customers, understanding who we are, we've just launched our new purpose, vision, values. And that kind of is a soft launch, ready then for the wider, because that underpins the kind of the 5-year plan and the roadmap to 2030 and the real key things we're going to focus on. So so it's been great in that journey, really. Nice. So a transitional plan, purpose, vision, values, and then the kind of the roadmap to 2030, which we're calling Be More Magenta.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some of the key themes that customers have asked for, employees? What have been some of the key themes that you've really seen come to the fore in the last 12 months, would you say?
Well, I think our purpose, vision, values really highlight that, because we have done an awful lot of consultation work around this and listened and understood. Okay. So the first thing was, who are we as an organisation, and what is our purpose? What are we here to do? Yes, all the stuff I've talked to you about, we're in the heart of the Wirral, but what actually is it? And we came to the conclusion that actually our purpose is to empower people, So that is absolutely our strapline now. So empowering people is our purpose. That's who we are. And that's empowering colleagues to be able to absolutely understand what customers need, where their challenges are, how we can support them better, ultimately do the right thing for customers. And therefore, in turn, that empowers customers to have, to live in a safe environment, to work with us if they want to get back into education, to work with us if we can help them around their kind of, day-to-day challenges or just opportunities. So that's our purpose as an organization. And then we looked at our vision, and this was really interesting because we were kind of, look, things are challenging at the moment. We absolutely know, the world is dark in many areas, and the Wirral is part of that. And we were saying, but if that's our purpose, is to empower people, then what is our vision? And we looked at different words that came up. We talked to customers, talked to colleagues, and we came up with opening doors to homes full of love, communities full of life, and a world full of possibilities. And we played around with that quite a lot. And we said, is that too ambitious? And then we were like, no, it's not too ambitious. It's absolutely something that we should thrive to achieve. And we owe it, don't we? We owe it to our tenants and customers to give them the best service.
Yeah, it's got to be aspirational, right? As well, it's got to be aspirational.
Of course it has.
How hard is it to create a plan for 5 or 6 years, given what you've just said, in terms of all the different dynamics at play and the different economies and stuff? How hard is it to look into the future sometimes as a chief exec of a housing organisation right now?
Oh, yeah. If I had a crystal ball kind of thing, that would be amazing. Yeah, somebody could tell me what's going to happen. You have to have a vision, as we've said. So you've got a 5-year plan because, there are a number of things that, from a financial perspective, we have a 30-year plan, a business plan that enables us to look at where we're going to invest or spend. That, building houses is not an easy kind of overnight thing. So therefore, 5 years for where are we going to build, where are we going to be, what are our regeneration programs? We're working with a council who's talking about removing flyovers and, creating urban villages. So, that's much longer than a 5-year plan. But then there are things that are here now, the next 12 to 24 months. This is what we really need to focus on. So there's a degree of this part of the plan that's written in pen, and then there's part of it, I guess, is written in pencil, and you've got to keep revisiting. Is our purpose still right? Is our vision still right? Are our values still right? And where are we heading? Have we still got the financial numbers that we need? Is it still, we are going to absolutely kind of look to build over in that area or regenerate over in that area. So, you've constantly got to keep sort of checking that your plan is right.
Yeah, no, agreed. And you mentioned about empowerment. You've said it a few times, actually, so I can tell the kind of leader you probably are. How do you get that message to colleagues to give them that empowerment so they can do the right thing? Because the right thing's not always the easiest thing, right? So to do the right thing by a customer sometimes is the longer way around, or it's the spending that extra 10 minutes with the customer that needs you. But how do you do that as a leader? How do you make sure that message gets through to colleagues so that they can do the right thing and they can be empowered to do the right thing?
Yeah, no, you're right. So, our values, that's exactly it, is do the right thing. And that came from colleagues. They didn't want anodyne words, that they were there. That was how they described it, kind of, and integrity, ambition, all of the words that, we and other organizations have used. So it was absolutely do the right thing. And you're right. With that comes sort of challenges as well, because, that's quite scary. And there has to be sort of regulation and legality, do the right thing if it's legal, clearly,
Of course.
but colleagues have really, really embraced that. And it's this ongoing dialogue. So I have an ongoing dialogue with colleagues right now about what does do the right thing mean. And we look at lots and lots of different case studies. We've got a little kind of team of people who are the do the right team thing that you can kind of check things off with. We use, as I'm sure a lot of organizations do, we use Viva Engage. Was called Yammer. Why did they change it to Viva Engage?
I don't know. I literally don't know.
No, Yammer Time was like so much more fun, wasn't it? So we use that as one of our platforms. And what we've seen there is that colleagues now are really, really sharing. They're sharing their experiences out there in communities. They're sharing their experience with customers. So it can be something so one last week was a colleague was out and there was a customer, an elderly customer who didn't have a phone, couldn't afford a phone, and was and had some real vulnerabilities. And so, immediately on there, the phone, we get a phone, and it's so you've got something as simple as that right the way through to, people coming and putting much kind of bigger ideas on that they're seeing, taking photographs of some of the challenges. You're out there, we're encouraging colleagues to particularly report if there's damp and mold, or if there is customers with vulnerabilities, or we've got some real ASB challenges in some of our environments. Share, tell us, and then colleagues are beginning to see that this is how the things happen and how you can do the right thing. And then underpinning that as well, which is even more powerful for me from a cultural sort of journey perspective, is that colleagues are also sharing personal experiences, which goes back to the thing with me, with podcasts, with starting it out. I think the more authentic you can be as a leader and show your personal experiences, the more that other people will do that. So we had a colleague last week who said, I'm feeling really low. I'm not feeling so good. How do other people cope when they're feeling that way? And the outpouring of support that came to that colleague was amazing. So so I think there are lots of different ways to connect, aren't there, right now?
There is, and I think from what you said, like, it's more important. The actions are better than the words, in terms of if a colleague does go above and beyond for a customer or whoever, you've got to celebrate that success, haven't you? Because otherwise it's just words on a page. Do the right thing. If they're not seeing that the leadership team are supporting that do the right thing message, it becomes insincere, doesn't it, I suppose? But as we look to the kind of future then, I mean, two questions really. What do you think some of the key, obviously there's some big shifts in the UK housing market right now. We've got cost of living, regeneration, building new homes. There's 100 things at play. What do you think will be some of the big things that we see in the housing landscape over the next 5 years? And what do you see some of the challenges being for Magenta in that period?
Yeah, I guess the big thing is going to be, whatever government we have in the next 18 months, it's not really going to make a difference from a perspective of Magenta that we will continue to support our customers, and continue to understand our customers, who they are, who are our future customers. And that's, the data point is absolutely key for that, understanding what we need to be doing, how we invest the money that we have got into the right areas. And I think the landscape will continue to be quite pressurized over the next kind of few years. There's no way out of that, is there? We know that we do not have enough suitable housing. We know that, so therefore we need big investment. Landlords like ours need to continue to provide safe and secure homes, but thriving communities. So we need investment to be able to do that as well, at the same time as build new. So, we need to work with governments for them to understand the work that we do and just how important that is, and that we are more than a landlord. At times I've said this, and I'm sure, you've heard it before, sometimes we're the fourth or fifth emergency service.
Yeah.
And, I think that's probably right, because we understand exactly how our communities operate, what, as I say, their challenges are, who are the people that live with them and what they need. But therefore we need to be listened to. And the only way that we're going to do that is if we listen to customers. And so we're just going to have to keep absolutely getting closer, understanding, listening and acting. And I think there'll be more requirement to do that. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think we need to work out how we do it.
No, it's a good point. And I've always wanted to ask a chief exec this. So with all the kind of economic challenges, I sometimes think we forget about this, but with the economy the way it is and the sustained media coverage the way it is at the moment around our sector, how do you maintain staff morale? And how do you make sure that people that work for you feel motivated? And what sort of the messages that we should be giving to our colleagues at the moment? Because it's tough out there right now. It really is tough. And especially those on the front line and some of our colleagues are really, really finding it difficult to try and do the right thing by customers, by themselves, their own personal situations. But how are you keeping morale high within your current teams and colleagues?
It is a really good question, particularly because there's been such overly aggressive kind of press attention recently as well, which I've seen in previous sectors. It's really quite strange for me. It's like healthcare, exactly. Social care. It's like, the eye of Sauron just moves, at times. And this is, it's currently sitting on in housing, isn't it? And you're right. And interestingly as well, I spoke recently at the regulator of social housing had a colleague conference, and I was invited to be on a panel, which was really amazing. And that was one of the questions that came from the audience, from the regulator as well, is how do you keep your colleagues motivated in such a difficult time? And it's a lot of the things that we've been talking about. Colleagues to me are everything. The people are everything. The customer, the colleague, that is exactly how organizations work and thrive and, deliver excellence. So for me, focusing on what colleagues need right now, getting out with them, listening to them, and actioning. So it's kind of like, you said, we did. You said, we did. And just being really real with them. And if you can't deliver, you explain why. The thing that I find that the biggest thing is just tell people why. Explain why. If you're having a conversation with somebody and you need to understand what their challenges are, you ask them why. What does that mean to you? Why do you do that? And at the same time, if you do that back in a kind of a very open style as an organization and completely transparent, is look, this is why we're doing it. This is why it's like that. But you are so valued, and and this is why I value you, and this is why it's important that and from an exec perspective, I push all of the directors and all the teams to get so close to frontline colleagues, because they're the ones in customers' houses. They're the ones feeling it. And it makes me sad, really, because it's the housing and, organizations like Magenta and others, they deliver such a great social purpose. So it's such a rewarding role, and I want to attract people into the sector. That's the point for me. I don't want people to feel that this is not somewhere you want to work, or you're embarrassed to say to people that you work in housing. Actually, it should be one of the sexier kind of like, it's the sexier sectors. And, back in the previous role, we created an emerging talent program for that very reason, to bring in, early careers, new talent, bring them. We were just about to do the same at Magenta, because it's key and it's so exciting. The range of opportunity of roles within housing, you know that I'm talking to a recruiter. I mean, the things that the roles that you can recruiting to, there aren't many sectors that are like that. So we need to make it sexy, James. We need to get.
We need to make it sexy. But the other thing is that we're seeing is people aren't bothered. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that people have forgotten that they need money, but purpose has become a massive, massive ask for people and what they want in the career. We work in the private sector as well. And I would say that the public sector has become sexier. We just don't talk about it enough on the right channels. We're still doing inside housing adverts, and that has a place, obviously. But some of the people that we want to attract into our sector aren't inside housing. They aren't looking at those publications every day. We've got to get more experience from the outside world, haven't we? Outside of our sector. And hopefully there'll be more people like you that choose housing as the sector of choice in the future.
Yeah, no, I hope so. And going back to the why do we do podcasts? Why do I do that? One of the things. So I just recently we put out a role for CIO, and we've been looking for data scientists and various roles that you'd have never thought that you'd be saying that those words would kind of come into the housing sector. But one of the things that happened with the CIO was that, and we got over sort of 30 odd really strong applicants, and a number of them said that one of the reasons that they wanted to come to Magenta was because of the kind of way that we were putting ourselves out there from a social media perspective. And, and particularly some of the things that I was doing, you'd got people saying, I listened to your podcast, I'd really like to work for an organization like that. So I think, again, that's why it's important that we do that we show that we're not just putting adverts in Inside Housing, that we are as kind of, can be as avant-garde, as others.
Yeah, love that. I just want to finish for me really is you've got such a knack with words, but also like setting a vision kind of for any aspiring leaders. And I'd probably say that's probably the demographic and the audience that we get in this podcast is people thinking about taking that step up into leadership positions. What sort of advice would you give to someone that wants to be an aspiring leader? What's like a couple of bits of advice you would give to someone that's looking to continue or to develop on their leadership journey?
I think the first thing is to understand your point of view. Mm-hmm. So understand what really matters to you, because if you absolutely lead with that, then you'll be real and you'll be authentic. Yep. And that's what people buy into, because the people are what's important. So be clear on what you bring. Mm-hmm. Be clear on why people should want to work with you, want to engage with you, want to be part of a vision that you would drive forward. Because if you know what that is and you can see that and you can see that you can make a difference, then people will want to join you and they'll want to go with you because they'll believe in you. And that's it. So it's have confidence of your conviction in that way and just do it. Stop talking about it and do it.
Yeah. It's a really good way to finish. Just do it. I think it's been great having you on the podcast. I can't wait now to put the links into our podcast to yours, and I'm going to be an avid listener moving forward. But I just wanted to say a massive thank you for being so open. I'm excited to see how Magenta get on in the next 3 or 4 years, and I look forward to keeping in touch with the journey.
No, thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed it. And you're a good podcaster.
Hey,
you're a good podcaster. You've passed the test for sure. You've given me some some little tips, I think. So yeah.
Well, I'm just seeing the book in the background. Is that from your podcast? Love that.
Yeah. I've part of the podcast is that the kind of the book was the kind of the end thing of it. So it's a number of my paintings and a number of the kind of the work that we did throughout that. So it culminated in a book, which I'm super proud of. So
amazing. Right. Well, I'll put the links into the podcast. Please send me one. I'm going to hold you to that. But thank you for your time and all of your insights. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Hip. If you'd like to hear more from us, please be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast platform. We are also running a 30-minute clinic free of charge to any clients that want to recruit in a more inclusive way. For more information, please reach out to us on our website, andersonjames.com.